שלום.
שלום לכולם, יש סאונד, יש וידאו.
אנחנו לא נדע לעולם.
טוב, שלום לכולם, ברוכים הבאים, ברוכות הבאות. אנחנו מאוד מתרגשים, מאוד מעריכים את כל מי שלקחה מזמנה ומזמנו, ובאו לדבר הזה. אנחנו יודעים שיש גם הרבה הורים שעכשיו סביב השאלה. שלום לכולם, יש סאונד, יש וידאו. אז אנחנו מאוד מעריכים, זו פעם ראשונה שאנחנו עושים משהו כזה, חלקכם מכירים אותנו יותר, חלקכם פחות, ותכף נספר עוד קצת על עצמנו. אנחנו מאוד מתרגשים לארח פה את דן אושינסקי לסוג של וובינר. אנחנו לא רוצים להגדיר את זה כוובינר, כי זה נכנס לאיזושהי משבצת שאולי לא מתאימה לזה, אבל דן יציג אחרי זה את עצמו. יש לו ניסיון מאוד עשיר בניוזלטרים, לקח את התפוצה של בזפיד מ-20,000 ל2 מיליון, הקים המון תת ניוזלטרים שם ובניו-יורקר, ופתח סוכנות שנקראת The Inbox Collective, כיום הוא עוזר להרבה ארגונים בארצות הברית, והוא היה נחמד מספיק כדי לבוא ולדבר גם עם החבר'ה בארץ, יהודי טוב כמו שאומרים, ותכף נעבור אליו.
כן, אז קצת למי שלא מכירה את הקבוצה, זה התחיל מאיזשהו שלל רעיונות וקונספטים של טל ושלי, לנסות להבין איך אנחנו מקדמים יצירה או יוצרות ויוצרים ישראלים, איך משיגים יותר חשיפה, איך מייצרים חיבור יותר טוב בין הקהל ליוצרים. ואחרי כמה חודשים של התבחבשויות סביב הדבר הזה, אמרנו אוקיי, בוא נתחיל פשוט מקבוצת פייסבוק ונראה לאן הדבר הזה הגיע. כרגע זה עדיין לא ברור לאף אחד מאיתנו מה בדיוק קורה בקבוצה, אבל קורים שם המון דברים נפלאים, גם מתוכן שאנחנו משתפים ויוצרים מרחבי האינטרנט, גם עם אחלה פוסטים ותוכן שאתן משתפות.
ולקבוצה קוראים?
לקבוצה קוראים דברים שאנחנו שולחים אחד לשני, מי יודע, אולי גם השם משתנה, הוא לא מספיק ג'נדר אינקלוסיב, ויכול להיות שגם בשבועות הקרובים גם נדע להגדיר בצורה יותר טובה מה אנחנו מנסים לעשות שם, ונגדיר את הדברים בהתאם. החזון הוא אותו חזון, אנחנו כן שמחים שכולם לוקחים בו חלק, והסוג של וובינר זה אחד הדברים הראשונים שאנחנו מנסים לעשות בשביל להבין איך אנחנו נותנים ערך גם לקהל, אבל בעיקר לאנשים שיוצרים תוכן ובונים את הקהל שלהם, בשביל זה דן פה. זהו בגדול.
אז בעצם הוובינר הזה הוא סוג של ספתח לניוזלטר משלנו, שנקרא טאב טאב טאב, וכשמו כן הוא, המטרה היא לפתוח כמה שיותר טאבים בדפדפן, אבל בעיקר במוח. אז יש שם תוכן טיפה אקלקטי, אבל אם אתם הגעתם מהקבוצה, אז אתם קצת מכירים את העולמות שמדבר עליהם, הרבה על אנשים שיוצרים, בעיקר אנחנו רוצים לקדם יוצרים ויוצרות מקומיים מכאן, ובניוזלטר יהיו הרבה דברים מעניינים, חלקם זה סוג של הבסט אוף של מה שקורה בקבוצת פייסבוק, אבל יהיה גם תוכן אקסקלוסיבי, ויהיה פורמט תוכן מאוד מגניב, שאנחנו נשיק שם לראשונה, אז הוא עדיין בגדר סוד, אבל הוא יכלול חברים מהקהילה, כל פעם מישהו אחר וחברות, נכון? ועוד כל מיני תוכן אקסקלוסיבי, כמו ניוזלטר ספשן, שזה המלצה על ניוזלטר אחד כל חודש, ומשם זה ילך ויתפתח.
alright.
הרשמה, אני רק אגיד, הרשמה לניוזלטר שלנו, נמצאת בתיאור של הסרטון, אז אם תסתכלו למטה מצד שמאל, אני לא יודע אם זה משודר ככה או ככה, תלוי בשפה, אבל מצד שמאל יש הרשמה לניוזלטר, ונשמח אם תצטרפו. כבר יש בו בערך 100 איש, בלי שבכלל אמרנו מה הולך להיות בו, זה מדהים, ותודה לכל מי שהצטרפה.
קול, בוא נעלה את דן. דן.
Hey Dan.
Hi guys, how are you?
Good.
Very good, very good. A lot of people here, no pressure.
Yeah.
We have 81 and counting.
Excellent. Good evening, shalom, and happy Hanukkah to all. Thank you for making time on. I did night six. Yes.
Yeah. We had to verify that. Yeah, as well.
Can we get a fact check on that? Night 6. Excellent. It's so good to be here.
Thanks.
I'm ready to get started when you all are. I mean, I do have happy to do the lighting of the menorah. If you all would like to kick, I've never done a menorah lighting as part of a webinar before. This can be a
first.
Hang on, let me do a slight adjustment. Here we go over the shoulder. I'm going to attempt to do this without lighting my apartment on fire.
Really? We have one as well.
Perfect. Do you guys want to do the honors? Do you guys want to start it?
No. We also at WeWork, and we don't want to set the place on fire, so we're gonna pretend, we're gonna fake light the Hanukkah.
All right. Go. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotov v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Hanukkah.
Amen. Yes, happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. All right, slight adjustment back. All right, let's do this. I'm going to share my screen. Thank you all for making time today. This is excited to be here with you all. And excited to share some things that I've learned about email with you all today. Let's see. Can StreamYard? Can everyone see my screen? Hopefully, there we go. Let me go full screen here. Oop, wrong button. Excellent. So thank you all for making time today. I'm Dan and want to spend a little time today talking about the power of email, how to use newsletters to drive growth, to build an audience, to engage and start a conversation with your readers, and to, of course, make money off of your newsletters. So want to share some lessons today with you all. About 30 minutes that I want to talk through a few lessons that I've learned over email. And at the end of all of this, my hope is you all will get the answers to a few big questions. Why should I invest in email in the first place? Why email? Why is it's so powerful? What are the building blocks of a great email? What are the things I need to do to make my emails successful, my newsletters successful? How do I create an audience first strategy? I'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a bit. And of course, what can I do to welcome my new readers? This is really important. Someone signs up for your newsletter, they're on your email list. What can you do to welcome them and greet them and start to build the relationship with them? I will also leave you with some things to take home, a list of ideas for ways to grow your email list, a worksheet to help you think through this framework that I call audience plus jobs. How do you build a newsletter for a specific audience? And we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A, for question and answer at the end. Briefly about me, and thank you guys for the introduction earlier. As mentioned, I was the director of newsletters at BuzzFeed and The New Yorker. Now I run Inbox Collective. I work with newsrooms and nonprofits and NGOs and brands around the world to help them figure out how to use email as effectively as possible. And I also write a monthly update about the world of email. It is called Not a Newsletter because it is actually not a newsletter. It is a Google Doc that I publish, but you can sign up to be alerted. signup.notanewsletter.com. And I send you an update when the next one is live. The next one is going to be published on Thursday, so about 2 days from now. Let's talk about why I should invest in email. In fact, first, Let me close the blinds so you guys don't get a weird shadow on my face. This is my 1 hour of sunlight per day here inside, here in quarantine. Why should I invest in email? So my story with email actually doesn't start with email. It starts with my first job after I graduated from my university, the University of Missouri, and I went to journalism school, and I got a job at a TV station in San Antonio, Texas. And I got to work with some of these people. Actually, these three on the bottom, Chris and Fred and Deborah, they were my colleagues at this TV station, a CBS station in San Antonio, Texas. And they had been news anchors at this TV station for about 30 years. And there was a point in the 1980s where they were responsible, this group of TV broadcasters were responsible for the most watched TV news program in America. There was a point in the 1980s where 60%, 3 out of every 5 televisions that existed in San Antonio, Texas, they were turned on at 6 o'clock in the evening. They were watching these people deliver the news. And I was really lucky to work with the staff. They were amazing and smart. But what I learned from them was that people had an amazing relationship with them. Television, a lot like email, people think is this channel for broadcasting. We have on TV, here are the stories, we bring the news to you. In email, we have links or ideas or things to sell, and all we do is just push them out to you. The conversation goes one way. But what I learned from Chris and Fred and Deborah was that done really well, you can actually turn these channels into a two-way conversation. What I learned from them about TV was people really responded to them. They watched their newscast because people knew that, well, they knew their voices, they knew their ideas, they liked the conversations they had, and they were willing to invite them into the living room every single day. People, they wake up and they have breakfast, they're having dinner with their family, maybe the television is on in the background as they're going to bed and settling in for the evening, and they would invite this group of TV broadcasters and anchors and reporters into their living room. And it made for a very personal conversation. And with email, the same thing is true. Your inbox, that space is where people invite family and friends and colleagues, and maybe you as well, a brand or an individual or a newsroom. Someone invites you into their space, but it is their space. And the thing, if you remember only one thing about today, remember this. That inbox is their space. They invite you in, and you have to earn your place in that space. They are allowed to invite you in. They are allowed to kick you out. And so the more you think about email as a conversation, email as a relationship, email is an opportunity for someone to invite you in and say, tell me more. Don't miss that chance to start a really good conversation, to really think about the relationship you have. I really do mean this. Email is a relationship building tool. What I loved about working at BuzzFeed and the New Yorker and with the teams I work with today is done really well. If I get someone's email address, I can build a relationship with them for months or years to come. That's not always true for if I have 1 million Facebook fans, well, Facebook could change the rules. Same thing with Google. They changed the way they do SEO, but email is pretty consistent. I know if I get an email address, I have a chance to build a relationship for a long, long time. I also love that email is a cross-functional tool. I hope this is going to translate okay. By that I mean a lot of big organizations, like at the New Yorker, we had different parts of our team, people who worked on the editorial operation, writing and editing stories, people from marketing, sales, people from our product, technology, and data teams. And we would think about how we could connect different parts of our team together to work together towards a common goal. Email is a little like that. It's the thing that unites all parts of really big organizations. So big organizations or even individuals can use email to drive traffic and get people to read or learn more about your work, get people to sign up so you can grow your audience, help you build relationships and loyalty with those readers, make sure that they stay loyal, that they don't churn or go away. And also, of course, it's really great for driving revenue. And all sorts of people use email, individuals to big newsrooms and organizations, e-commerce sites, creators, all sorts of people can use email and use it to achieve these goals. And for me, the thing I love most about email is email not only drives amazing relationships, it also is usually one of the most important drivers of revenue for any sort of business, be it a newsroom or an individual trying to sell something or a company. When I started at the New Yorker, the reason I was hired was they had done research and realized the number one way that a reader would go from a casual reader of the New Yorker to someone who was a loyal subscriber was by getting them to sign up for our newsletter. If we got them to read a lot of the New Yorker every single day, we could turn them into a paying subscriber. And that's why they hired me to help grow that work. I see this with all sorts of organizations and individuals, big and small, to get more readers to your site, to build the relationship, to convert and drive the sale, and then to make sure they keep supporting your work year in and year out. Email does a little bit of all of this. So let's talk about the building blocks of a great email. When I was at BuzzFeed, we thought about there being 4 really crucial, really important building blocks of an email: identity, service, utility, and personality. So I will talk through each of these. Identity means newsletters about who you are and what you care about. So I've told this story many times in the last few years, but my very first day at BuzzFeed, I told them that I wanted to launch 3 newsletters: a daily newsletter with all of the news that we were writing about that day, a weekly newsletter that showed some of the best long-form magazine-style stories, really deep reporting or investigations, and then a newsletter called This Week in Cats. And everyone laughed, but This Week in Cats became a very successful newsletter for BuzzFeed. And the reason was people identify as someone who they could identify as a cat person. I like cats, I care about cats. This newsletter was so successful, our audience who liked dogs got mad and we had to launch a dog newsletter too. People say that they are a cat person and it matters to them. It is something that really identifies who they are. And so building a newsletter around that actually made a lot of sense. This newsletter on the right is a great one. It's called Dense Discovery. And it's a newsletter about the intersection of design and technology. If you care about those things, you may want to sign up for it. Building newsletters around the things that make you unique and special, the things you care about most, is a really crucial part of an email strategy and a good place to start an email or a newsletter. You could start with a service kind of building block. These are the stories or content you want more of. So I want a newsletter that's going to share healthy, easy recipes I can cook. Well, you might want to sign up for this newsletter on the left. It's called Dinner in 20. And every week, the person behind it shares recipes you can cook in 20 minutes. On the right, from the New Yorker recommends. Our readers told us there are too many books, podcasts, and TV shows here in the US and shows internationally too. Which are the ones that I should make time for? Okay, you want to spend your time with the best stories and content? Great. We'll make a newsletter to help you find more of the things you want. These newsletters both have been very, very successful. Building around service, the things you want more of, can be successful. You can also think about the stuff that you need more of. These are the utility newsletters. The content you need because, maybe like this example on the left, you are lucky enough to live in Hawaii and you want to know what is happening that day in news in Hawaii. You're going to sign up for Honolulu Civil Beat daily newsletter. Maybe like me, you work in the journalism space. This is a newsletter on the right from Asia called Splice, called Frames. It's from an organization called Splice that covers news. And I read them to learn what is happening with other journalism organizations, newsrooms in other parts of the world. it's tied to my job. Utility is usually stuff around where you live or the work that you do. It's the stuff that I need to know so I can be informed about the world around me and the people I'm working with. And then lastly, personality. These are new. Many of you may have seen or even launched something like a tiny letter many years ago. Now even more popular is Substack. Lots of newsletters that are built around a specific voice, a unique voice. There is no one who sounds like you. And if you can explain the news or tell stories or build a community around that voice, that can be very, very powerful. What I saw in my previous work, and I still see today, is the best newsletters usually have at least one of these building blocks: identity, service, utility, personality. But the really, really good ones often have two or maybe even three. For instance, this on the left from the Washington Post is a daily newsletter around politics, but that comes from a specific personality, this reporter on their team, James. That combination, I need to know what's happening in politics because maybe I work in Washington, D.C., and politics is my business. But that combination of that utility plus a unique voice really makes for an interesting kind of product. Anne Friedman writes a lot about the intersection of feminism and technology, but from her own voice. That is a really powerful combination. If you have one of these building blocks, you probably have a really good newsletter. If you have two or more, you may have a great newsletter. But start with those building blocks. Let's talk about creating an audience-first strategy for a moment. By that, I mean this. Most people who when they start building a newsletter, building an email strategy, don't spend enough time thinking about who their email is really for and what it needs to do. The most common email that I get from my readers, someone who emails and says, I have this great idea for a newsletter. Every single week, I'm going to email my readers a list of things that I read that week that I think are great, that they should read too. And then I write back and I say, well, do you know who your email is for? And they say, well, my email is for anyone smart and curious and interesting. And then I always have to tell them the bad news, which is the email with the audience that's for anyone is often for no one. Having a really specific audience in mind, knowing I'm trying to reach a really unique type of person, is crucial to your success. You have to know who you're trying to reach. Maybe your audience one day will be everyone, but for now, start small, start specific. And not just that, think about not just who these people are, but what you need to do that you do uniquely well, that they can get from you and that maybe you are the best at, or you have a really unique perspective to help inform them about. So what I want you to do is think about this idea of audience plus the job to be done of the newsletter. So first, who am I trying to reach? What makes them unique? And then what can I do to serve them and help them? So for instance, you're thinking through your audience, and I have a worksheet that I will share with you all later to think through this a little more. Think about who they are. What do they care about? What do they do maybe for work or their career? What do they like or dislike? What do you know about them? How old are they? What else do they read? Where else do they go to find interesting stories or ideas? Think about everything you know about them. And then think about what you are going to do to help serve them and to be useful to them. There's lots of different types of jobs to be done. Often a job to be done is around education. I want people to be informed, to discover new things. Maybe you work in news and you want to get people an inside scoop, be the first to know about a story or be updated about what's happening in a local area. Maybe you want to offer analysis on a topic that you have expertise on or identify trends to go really in depth on something or help them learn something new. Education is a really good job to be done. Maybe your goal is around connection. You want to build a community of people who are talking about a topic and you want to connect them to other parts of your community. You want to build a community of writers or artists. And great, how can I connect them to one another, help them learn from one another? How can I use my newsletter to amplify a unique voice, help them learn from people they may not get to hear from every single day? or find something good to share, something good to do in their city or their community. Maybe the goal of the newsletter is engagement. You want to start a debate or a conversation, asking readers questions so they can write back to you and you can share those voices with other people. Maybe you want to use your newsletter to drive action, to create impact, to get people involved, to highlight organizations making a difference. Maybe the goal is to teach people new skills or new habits that they don't know yet, and your action is trying to get people to help them get smarter, more informed, to do things to make their lives, their careers a little bit better. Maybe the goal is around entertainment. I want people to discover something new. I want someone to find something new to do in their city. Maybe people have the FOMO, the fear of missing out. You want to help make sure they don't miss out on great things, or help people save money. Any of these could be a job to be done of your newsletter. There are many, many more that go beyond this list, but as you think about your newsletter, really what I want you to think about is, who is the audience? What do I know about them? And then how can I serve that audience? Be it through education, entertainment, connection, action. What can I do to make their lives a little bit better, to make them smarter, to help them move forward? The more you think about the audience and the job to be done, and you think about the building block that you're building off that newsletter, the better your newsletter will be, the more specific and more unique it can be. I want to share a few more things. I want to talk a little about welcoming your readers. So let's say you're thinking about your newsletter. You figured out who your audience is. You figured out what you're going to do for them. You know what the building block is. Great. Now you start to build out your newsletter strategy. And one of the first things you should do is think about how you welcome your readers to your newsletter. Remember, your readers, your new subscribers, may not know a lot about you yet, or may only know a little bit about you. Even at the New Yorker, where the New Yorker is a magazine that has been around for almost 100 years, we thought our readers knew everything about the New Yorker that they could possibly know. But then when we started sending our welcome series, we realized people didn't know that we had podcasts, a crossword puzzle. They didn't know about the cartoons or about some of the daily stuff we were writing on our website. They didn't know a lot about us. And so we wanted to make sure that we were using our welcome series to introduce ourselves and show them everything that we could do for them. So once you figured out what your newsletter is, the building block, the audience, the job to be done, then start to think about how you're going to welcome them with a few emails over the first 30, maybe 60 days. It's really important to have one of these. So that way you establish trust with the reader, you establish a relationship, you get to know them, they get to know you. And this is really important, the more that people open and engage with your newsletters early on, the more likely your emails are to have high open rates and engagement, to go to the good parts of the inbox in the long run. The more that someone treats your email like an email from a friend, the better your emails will do in the long run. And the start of making a new friend in the inbox is introducing yourself and telling them more about you. I like to send a few different types of emails. I call this first one, I call it the Hallmark email, because in the US there is a greeting card company called Hallmark where you can buy birthday cards, congratulation cards, cards for any celebration, a bar mitzvah or wedding, a new baby boy or girl, any sort of card, you can get it from Hallmark. And I like to think about the subject line on these emails being similar to those greeting cards. Often when you're welcoming someone, you're saying, thank you, congratulations, welcome, hello, something to greet them and welcome you. You're telling them a little about who you are, when you are going to be sending them emails, and what they can expect from you. You are setting expectations for future emails, making sure they open and engage right away. You send this email as soon as they sign up. Hi, you've signed up for my newsletter. I just wanted to reach out and tell you a little bit more about when you will hear from me and what you can expect from me. I would encourage you, if you are either an individual, an organization, a nonprofit, a newsroom, any sort of brand, to think about sending these sorts of talking head emails. These are letters from you or a key member of your team to your reader. Introduce yourself, say hi. Send these emails and keep them very basic. You'll note both of these feel like real letters from a reader to from someone important, an executive director of a nonprofit, the editor-in-chief of a newsroom, to the reader. Hi, I wanted to introduce myself and tell you a little about who I am and why I do the work that I do. If you have a big organization or a big brand, maybe you send multiple emails like these as part of the series. But in that first week, send an email, introduce yourself, tell them a little bit more about who you are and why you do the work that you do. I would certainly encourage you to send a survey in that first 30 or maybe 60 days. Ask them questions. Make sure you know who they are and why they care about the things that they care about. What are they interested in? What topics matter to them? What do they like or dislike? How could you make your email better? Ask them questions so that way you can learn from them and make sure that your newsletter, your email gives them the stuff that they want more of. I would encourage all of you to think about what I call the evergreen email. How can I share stories, ideas, resources, work that they might be really interested in? The best of the best. If someone is just getting started with you, where do they start? So on the left, this is one from a news organization, a public radio station in Boston. Right now, their readers have so many questions about coronavirus. Let's make sure we have an email in the welcome series to share resources to help them understand what is happening near them so they can stay safe. On the right, this is one that I send to my readers of Not a Newsletter. People ask me the same questions over and over again. What kind of tests do I run? How do I grow my lists? I like your newsletter, Dan. Is there like a podcast or something else that I should listen to get smarter about email? Great. Let me share some of those resources for you. Get started here. Those sorts of resources are great because they get a lot of value from you. And with these emails, you're setting them up in an automated way through your email service provider, like a MailChimp. So that way, as soon as someone signs up, day one, they get the welcome email from you, the Hallmark email. 2 or 3 days later, a talking head email. Maybe a week later, an evergreen email. 2 weeks later, a survey. A couple emails that are automated, so your email service provider is doing a lot of the work for you to start the relationship. And of course, anything that you're trying to do, if you're a small team of writers like these folks on the left, The Right Life is a website dedicated to helping writers get better at writing, finding ways to make money from a writing career. And so they send hard sell emails trying to sell courses and products for people to improve their skills. Maybe you're a news organization like the Salt Lake Tribune and you're trying to sell a subscription. Include these emails as part of your series. So if you're something you're selling, a course, a class, a subscription, a membership, you want someone to donate and support your work, whatever it is, they have an opportunity to do that as part of the welcome series. You can also add these calls to action to other emails too earlier in the series, but save the big ask. We want you to support our work for later on after you've built the relationship with them. All right. I want to share 2 more quick resources, and then we'll save some time for question and answer. After this, we will share a few things. One is this audience plus jobs to be done worksheet. It's a Google Doc. You can open it and save it for yourself. And I want you to think, as you're thinking through your newsletter, who is my audience? Be really specific. What do I know about them? What makes them unique? How old are they? What do they like? What are their behaviors, their motivations? What do they care about? Write it down and then think about what they need from you, one of those jobs to be done. Maybe there are multiple jobs to be done of your newsletter. In fact, with many teams that I work with, for different parts of the newsletter, there are different jobs. Maybe the start of the newsletter is analysis, and I want to offer ideas or suggestions. But then the second part of the newsletter, I share links or stories from other places to read. So the goal there is discovery, find something new. Maybe I want to ask a question. So part of the newsletter is built around connection, starting a conversation. You can have multiple jobs to be done, but think about for every part of the newsletter, what does this part need to do for my readers to make them more successful, to make them smarter, to make them better? So this is for you, free to use, and I hope it helps. The other question, I get asked this every single day, so I just turned this into Google Slides that anyone can read. If you're thinking about ways to grow your email list, here's some opportunities. From big websites that think about sign-up pages and pop-ups to small ideas for cross-promotion and growth, little things that you can do to get started. I think there might be some things in there to help you get more subscribers for your email list. I'll also mention, inboxcollective.com. That's me and my company. If you have more questions after this, you are always free to email me to dan@inboxcollective.com. I'm always happy to answer questions if we run out of time today. That being said, I'll stop sharing my screen now. Would love to know what else I can answer for you all today.
All right, so first of all, a huge thanks for this sort of webinar, as we call it. We learned a whole lot. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
All right, so we learned a whole lot, and there are a lot of questions that were raised from the audience. So we'll kind of go one by one and see how it goes.
Yeah. So this is the first one.
Yeah. All right. So the first question is, in most cases or in many cases, you don't have the resources to do everything, right? In terms of marketing or content.
Sure.
So a question is, how do you know if investing resources in a newsletter is actually worthwhile? And also, like, a sub question is, how do you actually measure the success?
It's a great question. So for me, when I think about measuring success with newsletters, I usually have one of a few goals in mind. You should pick not just... When I was at BuzzFeed, I got to work for a really smart person. Her name is Dow Wynn. She's now the publisher of BuzzFeed. I think one of the smartest people in media. And Dow always told us, you never want to have just one metric for success. With email, for instance, most people start and they say, well, open rate is the most important thing. Do people open the newsletter? But it's more than just open rate. It's more than just clicks to your site. It could be about revenue that you drive from your email, the conversations that you start with from your email, learnings that you get from them through surveys. Maybe you're a news organization and you care about, do people click out and spend time reading your stories afterwards? It could be about conversion. I want to take these readers and turn them into paying supporters of my work. I would suggest that you think about a few different goals. Engagement, that could be opens, clicks, loyalty. How often do people come back and open your newsletters? If you use a tool like a MailChimp, they offer different ways to show you the loyalty of a reader, star ratings, or they also have an email engagement metric that you can see do people open my newsletter? Sometimes, often, rarely. You certainly want to think about revenue and maybe conversations too. There could be a few different metrics there. For me, when I start, I usually have a few of these in mind. And then anytime I launch a newsletter, the goal is for the first few months, I want to see signs of success. So for instance, when I launched not a newsletter, this Google Doc, I also created the thing about a Google Doc that's really interesting is I get no statistics from Google about how many people read it. So I knew I needed a way to measure if people were using it. So I started an email alert and I said, sign up here and I will email you when I have a new edition of the Google Doc that's published. So the metric for success for me was initially signups. Did people sign up? A few hundred people signed up in the first month. All right, people are interested, they're excited. Then I started to look at other metrics, the conversations that I was starting from my email newsletter, the clients and work that I get from readers of my email newsletter, responses to my survey. All of these together help me understand, is my business working or not? So just having a few metrics in mind, could be revenue, engagement, loyalty. Those are going to help show you whether or not something is working or not. Start with a few metrics that you think are central to your success as a business, and then measure them over a few months. I'll also say direction is more important than speed. Where you are going is more important than how fast you get there. A lot of people today who start a newsletter think, I just started a newsletter, everyone will sign up, it will be a success right away. but email often moves very slowly. I tell a lot of people when they're launching a new newsletter, it may take a year, it may take 2 years to build the audience you want. Be patient and have a few metrics for success in mind so you can see whether or not you are growing as your newsletter, as you put more time into your newsletter.
All right. I really like the second note there. I think in everything that's related to building a community, the direction is much more important than actually getting there fast. So thanks for that. Another question was about the subscriber data. So when you're marketing in Facebook, for example, you have segmented data that says, all right, this person is this years old or whatever, and then you can like tailor your marketing. So does this exist in newsletter? Are there tools to obtain this?
To create these different segments? Yeah. So what's exciting about email is email does offer a few different opportunities for segmentation, depending on the tool that you use. So, for instance, right now a very popular email marketing tool is called Substack. Many of you may have heard of this. A lot of people are launching newsletters on that. Some tools like Substack offer no real segmentation. You basically can just build a big audience and try to sell them stuff. Other tools that are more sophisticated, like MailChimp, MailerLite, ConvertKit, Campaign Monitor, you can create segments. You can try to identify this person bought something from me. This person is really engaged. This person lives in a certain place. This person took a certain action or read a certain story. Let me try to create segments around readers who are interested in these topics, these stories, these products. You can do that with email marketing software as you get more sophisticated. In fact, if you go into notanewsletter.com, I have a resource about different email service providers. I've reviewed a few different ones, and I talk about some of the segmentation and data that you can get from there if you're curious about which email service provider might be right for you.
All right, perfect. Another question is regarding the consistency or the frequency of emails. Like it can be once a week, once a month, and you talked about BuzzFeed having a daily mail. I know, like me personally, a daily mail, a daily newsletter might be too much for me, but what are your views?
So a daily newsletter for most people, with the exception of a news organization that covers daily news, is probably too much. I would recommend that you pick something consistent, at least one email a month as a good starting place. So that way they hear from you on a regular basis. If it is less frequent than that, it can be tough. Another idea I will share with you, I have a friend my friend Robin Sloan, who is an amazing writer and has created this idea that I think is so smart. If you want to start small, you say, I want to send a lot of emails, but I can't send an email every day, every week, but I want to start small. Robin has proposed this idea that he tries with his own newsletter. He thinks about his newsletter as like a season of a TV show. So when he sends his newsletter, he'll tell his readers, the new season of my newsletter will be out soon, and it's going to go for 3 months. You're going to get an email from me every week for 3 months. Then the newsletter will go on, summer vacation, and then I'll be back in a little bit, and we'll have another season of the newsletter. Depending on what you are trying to sell, maybe yours is a personal newsletter, maybe the season approach, like a TV show. You tell readers the newsletter will be out every week, every 2 weeks for this amount of time. Then I will go away for a little bit, then I'll come back for more. That could also work too. I would just recommend whatever you choose, tell readers up front what they can expect from you. Make sure they know. If you tell them you will send them an email every day and they don't hear from you, they're going to be upset. If you tell them that you will send an email every 2 weeks, as long as you send them an email every 2 weeks, they'll be happy. Set your expectations and try to deliver on the promise that you give to those readers.
All right, great. We have room for a few more from our audience. the golden question is how do you grow your newsletter? So obviously you have the resource that we're going to look into, but I don't want to have it like a long conversation about it, just like the few golden tips.
So if you are just starting your very first newsletter, like a personal newsletter, the hardest part is the starting place, because you are building an audience and doing things to grow your audience. If you're just starting out and it's just you are building your own newsletter, you are probably going to have to do a lot of things. I hope this will translate. You'll have to do a lot of things that don't scale. So what I mean by that is, at a place like the New Yorker or BuzzFeed, we already had lots of readers. Our goal was not about trying to get new readers. It was about promoting the right products to readers at the right time. You are on the New Yorker website and you're reading a humor story or looking at a cartoon. We should be telling you about our humor newsletter. But we already had those readers. That's a lot easier to do. If you're an individual, you're going to have to do some stuff that's more personal. A lot of it is meeting people, telling people in one-to-one conversations about your work, what it is that you do. A lot of it, this was very successful for me at the start with Not a Newsletter, going and saying, I'm going to write and share ideas that I think people can learn from. Maybe I go and I write a guest blog post on someone else's blog, or I write a really smart kind of article explaining how to do something, and then I try to share it with new audiences via a webinar, a talk, going on a podcast, even in some cases finding Facebook groups or listservs or threads on Reddit or Quora, where people might be asking having conversations around the topics that I had expertise in, and going and sharing what I had learned there, and then directing them back to my Google Doc and back to my sign-up page so they could sign up to learn more. When you're just getting started, that first 1,000 readers, a lot of it is really one-to-one conversations. Giving a talk, meeting someone at a conference, sharing an idea with somebody else, sharing a link, a lot of personal outreach, a lot of hard stuff just to try to get as many new readers as you can. As you grow, that's where you can ask your readers to share your work with other people. You can think about converting your audience from your website to newsletter subscribers. But at the start, a lot of it is just, it's being scrappy. It's having a lot of conversations. It's being willing to promote your work and doing good work that you can share with other people and that they might share with their audiences.
All right, got it? Of the stick. How do you prevent people from unsubscribing? So obviously content is important, but are there any, I don't know, maybe tricks or something of that sort?
So what we always used to say at BuzzFeed with our newsletters is that they had to be awesome every single time. They had to be great. We couldn't send anything bad. So you asked, there was the question earlier around how often should I send my newsletters? At BuzzFeed, we had newsletters like a daily newsletter, but others like our food newsletter, for instance, that we only sent about 2 or 3 times a week, because that was how often we thought we could send something that would be amazing and really useful for our readers. For us, the goal was every time we sent an email, there should be something in there that they find that's new and exciting, they'll be really excited to read and spend some time with. One of our metrics actually was we would look at click to open rate. What percentage of people who open a newsletter found at least one thing that they would click on and spend time with? That was a really good metric for us to make sure that a lot of our readers were finding something good to read. They were finding something useful, excited, that they wanted to spend more time with. So for me, it's actually really simple. I just want to send emails that every time I send them, people think, this is great, this is useful. And I want people to think when I show up in their inbox, they see my name, oh man, Dan sent me an email. Dan doesn't waste my time. He only sends me emails when it's going to be something that's really, really useful. So before I send anything, I think, are people going to get a lot of value from this? Are they going to get something great? Am I respecting their space? Because I need to, every time I show up in their inbox, give them something that they are going to love and be excited about. People unsubscribe because they get emails that aren't useful, that don't have content that's good for them, emails where there isn't a clear audience. People think like, I signed up for this email, but it's not for me. Or emails where I just signed up and right away you start trying to sell me something. I just signed up and now you're right away saying, buy, give me money, before building the relationship. But if you build the relationship, you start the conversations, you share useful things, people will stay subscribed for a long time. You're never going to be able to prevent all unsubscribes. Even at BuzzFeed, people unsubscribe from our This Week in Cats newsletter. I didn't think anyone would ever unsubscribe from This Week in Cats, but even cat people said, you know what, this newsletter is not for me. That's okay, that's part of it. You will never be able to prevent all unsubscribes. Focus on the relationships, sending them great stuffs, building the loyalty, and you will do good things in the long run.
All right, so we have time for 3 more questions. My apologies for the ones that didn't get a chance to be asked. If I understand correctly, we can send. You can
email me, dan@inboxcollective.com. If I don't answer your question, email me, and I'm happy to answer your question.
All right, so thanks for that. And 3 last questions. One is about internal newsletters. We wonder, do you have any insights towards newsletters that go to employees within a company and not just for external?
So internal emails are actually really, really interesting because you already know who your audience is. You know exactly who your audience is. So from there, it's just about thinking of the job of the newsletter. Look back at the worksheet that we'll share at the end of this, the jobs to be done, and think about what do you want your coworkers and your colleagues to do when they get this email. Is the newsletter, could be a combination of things, helping inform them about what's happening, helping them understand the trends of the business, asking questions and offering feedback. A lot of my favorite internal newsletters that I've seen, organizations will use their newsletter to amplify voices, to tell you, we want you to learn more about a colleague of yours, someone who's doing something amazing, and we want to celebrate them. The more that you think about the different jobs of the newsletter, what the newsletter needs to do, the better those emails tend to be. Don't just make it a list of, here's 7 things that our business did this week. Go and do something a little bit more exciting. Think about, is this newsletter an opportunity to amplify a voice, to start a conversation, to offer analysis, to learn more from a reader, to entertain them. Your newsletter, your internal newsletter can do a lot of different things. Look through that jobs to be done list, maybe pick 2 or 3 on there that you want to start with, and then make sure, okay, these are my 3, and so I need to have 3 different sections of the newsletter, each of which tries to accomplish this goal. The more you think about the jobs to be done for those newsletters, the better you will do. You already know who the audience is. Now it's just about making sure they get something good from you.
All right, one question, maybe just a bit more personal, about your preference of starting a newsletter that is not actually a newsletter. So as an expert, why did you decide to do so?
So the secret with not a newsletter was I started it when I was still at the New Yorker, and I just wanted to share the things that I was learning. I had a few months earlier given a talk here in New York about growth. How do you grow your email? And I had created these Google slides, which we'll share with you afterwards. It's an updated version of the slides that I created 5 years ago, maybe. And I had noticed that there were, even though I had given this talk once to maybe 100 people, every time I would go to share the Google Doc with someone else, someone asked, like, how do you grow your email list? I would go and I would find the slides and share it with them. And I noticed that there were always 2 or 3 of the Google Docs anonymous animals. There would be, 3 anonymous crocodiles in the top right corner. And I always thought that was interesting. So I just decided when I started Not a Newsletter, 1, it was going to be very long. 2 was that there was some pressure as the guy who does email to make a really good email. And I was worried, what if people don't like my email? So publishing in a different place was easy. The other thing was I had already written everything in the Google Doc. So it was easy for me to publish there because, well, I didn't have to update any formatting. I didn't have to worry about any extra cost. It was just easy to start. At this point, a Google Doc is not an ideal publishing platform. It does not work very well on your mobile phone, but it's kind of unique and it's a little different and people remember it. So now I've just kind of kept it as it is. People don't seem to forget that there's this guy who used to work at the New Yorker who publishes a lot of things he's learning in a Google Doc. They seem to remember it. So it works okay for now for me.
All right. We have one extra question that we want to squeeze in before the last one because I think it's important. So Ori asked if you have a system of a sort of methodology of creating a newsletter so that not every newsletter will take forever to create, like every time you need to make one.
So everyone is unique. I will mention that if you go into Not a Newsletter this month, there's a section of tools that you can use, and if you just even just search for it in the Google Doc, there's a woman who created, her name is Janelle, who created this thing called Newsletter OS, Newsletter Operating System, which is a system she used to help kind of keep track of her newsletter. It's a Notion document, that Notion system that you can use. Check that out. That might actually be really useful to help you keep tabs and everything. I have a link in there that takes you to her page. It's not incredibly expensive. It costs about $50 US to get access to this resource to help you stay organized. That might be useful for you.
Yeah, I also saw that one by Janelle. It's just amazing.
It's really cool. Yeah, it's a cool one. It could be useful. That might be helpful for you, Ori.
All right, so last question. In Hebrew, we have a phrase that says tip shel alufim, or tip shel alufot. That means like the golden tip that you can give a person that starts an email. So if you could just give just one, like what's the golden tip that you can give someone?
So for me, if there's just one thing, remember this. Email is just a tool for building relationships. It is a tool that you can use for conversation. And the more you think about how I can really get to know someone, share things that I'm learning with them, be useful for them, the more you think about the relationship, the more likely you are to succeed with email. Now, email does all sorts of things. It can drive traffic and sales. But if you think about it first as a relationship tool, as a reader invites you into their space and says, I'm interested, tell me more. Share your story, share your ideas, share your products, whatever it is. Share with me, I'm interested. Okay, that's your opportunity to really start a conversation and a relationship. The more you think about email as a relationship tool, as making a new friend, as starting that conversation, the better you will do with email in the long run. Once you have the relationships, you can do amazing things in the long run.
Wow. Thanks, Dan. I think we also made it on time.
Yeah, we're doing all right.
Yeah, so thank you so much. We've been building this event for a few months already, and it turned out great. Yeah, we'll switch to Hebrew. We don't want to hold you up. Dan, thank you so much for doing this and sharing the amazing resources.
Yeah, we really appreciate the time, and we'll post the links to the resources and to your email if anyone wants to continue the conversation. So again, really appreciate it.
Thank you all for having me, and happy Hanukkah to everyone. I hope the rest of your Hanukkah season is wonderful. Happy holidays and be safe.
Happy Hanukkah. Thank you, and we continue. Thank you.
טוב, אנחנו רואים שכבר אנשים מתחילים לעזוב. אז א', אנחנו משיקים את הניוזלטר שלנו ממש בקרוב, התוכן כבר בייסיקלי מוכן, אז המייל הראשון יצא ממש בקרוב, יש לינק פה ביוטיוב, וגם בקבוצה כמובן, ואנחנו נעלה גם סיכום של האירוע גם את כל החומרים והמסמכים שדן שיתף לנו, אז זה יעלה כנראה מחר בבוקר בקבוצה. זהו, ממש תודה לכולם שהגעתם, שהיה לא הכי סטנדרטית. זהו.
כן, כל פידבק, או אם יש אנשים אחרים שתרצו לראות בעתיד, גם על זה תוכלו לכתוב לנו בפוסט, ובאמת תודה לכולם, היו פה 100 איש, שזה הרבה מעבר לחלומות האופטימיים שלנו, לאירוע ראשון מסוגו, נקווה שיהיה עוד הרבה כאלה. תודה רבה.